Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Brakaha Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Matthew chapter 24, verse 3. But the header of this chapter reads, Signs of Hamashiach's return, because so-called Jesus Christ isn't the Messiah's real name. His real name is Yahawashi Hamashiach. Verse 3, And as he, Yahawashi Hamashiach, sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world, the sign of Yahawashi's coming, and the sign of the end of the age of the rulership of the heathen nations? And while Yahawashi was speaking to his disciples in the past, as pursuant to Romans chapter 15, everything written aforetime was written for our learning, Yahawashi is really speaking to his disciples today who are living in these times, the times before his second coming, and the times before the end of this current world or age of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, or the so-called white people. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. And if you have that spiritual eyesight, you can clearly see that these end-time signs are either taking place as we speak or in the process of taking place. And in this video, I'll be dealing with the famines and pestilences that are taking place. Just more indicators to know that Yahawashi's second coming is right around the corner, and the end of this age of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, is at its end. But I'll be dealing with the pestilences first. This is an article from endoftheamericandream.com titled, A New Epidemic, a new pestilence of black fungus is attacking thousands as it sweeps across India. And it was published on June 21st of 2021. You might want to become familiar with black fungus because cases are popping up all over India right now. In recent months, India has become the epicenter for the C19 pandemic, and many C19 patients are also developing mucormycosis, also known as black fungus. If black fungus attacks you, there is a really good chance that you are either going to be disfigured for life or die. In fact, the mortality rate for black fungus is far, far higher than it is for C19. Even if you don't die, the damage that black fungus can cause can be completely and utterly devastating. The following comes from CBS News. The fungus attacks the nose, eyes, and brain, causing blackening over the areas. In severe cases, doctors commonly have to remove the sinus tissue and even the eyes. And when it attacks the brain, the chances of the patient's survival diminish. The fungus eats whatever comes its way and causes necrosis because it attacks the blood supply to that area, turning them black. Wattal said, mucormycosis was always a serious infection even in non-C19 times. It has cropped up more in C19 times. What a horrible, horrible disease. According to the New York Times, the number of cases in India was negligible 3 weeks ago, but now more than 30,000 have been reported and more than 2,100 victims have already died. The number of so-called black fungus cases in India has shot up for more than 30,000 from negligible levels in just 3 weeks. The deadly disease has sickened former C19 patients across the country, and doctors believe that hospitals desperate to keep C19 patients alive made choices that left them vulnerable. Indian states have recorded more than 2,100 deaths according to news reports. Though those that have had C19 seem particularly vulnerable. In fact, it is being reported that 85% of those that have developed black fungus have some sort of a history with C19. More than 85% of the reported cases of mucormycosis, which has a high mortality rate, have a history of C19, India's Health Minister Dr. Harsh Vardhan said last week. So, will black fungus become a major problem outside of India? Abarataza, this is another pestilence that spreads to the four corners of the earth and takes out a lot of you wicked people in mass numbers. And besides this, many more pestilences are to come, because it's all judgment from Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai for all the wickedness you people have been committing on this planet. And again, because we're living in the last days, really the last seconds of the last days, before this age of the heathen nations is come to an end, and the age of Israel ruling in the kingdom of heaven, which will be for eternity, is established. At this point, we just don't know, and we will monitor future developments very carefully. So that's it with the pestilences. Now I'm going to give an example of the famines that are to come. This is a video from the brother Stain the Spirit 144's YouTube channel titled Giants Swarms of Grasshoppers Plaguing Crops All Over Western U.S. Famine. And as we'll see in this video, there's a situation that's happening due to the mega drought in the western half of the United States of America, which is bringing a plague of grasshoppers, which a lot of farmers fear is going to eat up what little bits of crops and foraging lands are left.
I have talked about this before, but this story just got a whole lot stranger. In previous years, most Americans haven't been too concerned when giant swarms of insects have devoured crops on the other side of the globe. But now this is actually happening right here in the good old United States of America on a massive scale.
And back in about 2019 and 2020, if you remember, there were locust swarms ravaging different countries across the planet. But now in 2021, there's a building grasshopper swarm going on in the western half of the United States of America. And when you look it up, grasshoppers and locusts are of the same species. And also, if you remember, back during ancient Egypt, the Most High plagued ancient Egypt with locust swarms that ate up crops there. And we're living in the modern day spiritual Egypt today in the United States of America.
Gale. The hot, dry conditions in the western half of the nation have created ideal conditions for grasshoppers to flourish, and millions upon millions of them are now wreaking havoc wherever they go. In fact, the National Weather Service says that some of the grasshopper swarms are so large that they are showing up on radar. The National Weather Service, NWS, Glasgow says the radar is lighting up, but not with rain. Instead, the radar is picking up countless grasshoppers in the area, according to a post from the NWS. The grasshoppers are flying as high as 10,000 feet above the ground and are being picked up by the radar, the NWS said. I have never heard of such a thing happening in this nation in my entire lifetime. According to one news source, some of the grasshopper swarms are so dense, it can appear the earth is moving. They're arriving in swarms so dense it can appear the earth is moving. They're covering roads and fields, pelting ATV riders, and steadily devouring grains and grass to the bedevilment of farmers and ranchers. A massive population of grasshoppers is proliferating in the sweltering American West, where a deep drought has made for ideal conditions for grasshopper eggs to hatch and survive into adulthood. Agricultural production in the western half of the country was already going to be below expectations because of the endless megadrought, and now these grasshoppers are steadily devouring fields that farmers have meticulously cultivated. Not only that, grasshoppers are also eating much of what our cattle herds were supposed to be eating as well. Grasshoppers, which thrive in hot, dry weather, have been defoliating trees and competing with cattle for food, and the bugs are winning. Ranchers are selling cattle, due to poor forage conditions and a lack of feed, according to the latest U.S. drought monitor. This is not a small problem that we are talking about. On average, in 7 western states, each square yard of land contains at least 15 grasshoppers, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Around 93% of the West is in some level of drought this week, and a bizarre impact of this pernicious dry condition is the explosion of the grasshopper population. Grasshoppers have devoured so much vegetation that many ranchers fear rangelands could be stripped bare. A 2021 grasshopper hazard map from the U.S. Department of Agriculture shows each square yard of land contains at least 15 grasshoppers in parts of Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Arizona, Colorado, and Nebraska. That is nuts. I knew that this crisis was bad, but I didn't know that it was this bad. From the moment that they are born until the moment they die, these grasshoppers are constantly eating. In the past, I have used the term voracious to describe them, and that is precisely what they are. They are never satisfied, and they are always looking for new fields to ravage. One rancher in southern Oregon is absolutely horrified that they have shown up in his area in such massive numbers this year. I can only describe grasshoppers in expletives, said Richard Nicholson, a cattle rancher in Fort Klamath, a small community in southern Oregon, who once recalled seeing grasshopper bands eat 1,000 acres a day and cover the ground like snow. The insects cause innumerable headaches for farmers and ranchers, competing with cattle for tough-to-find wild forage and costing tens of thousands of dollars in lost crops and associated costs. They are a scourge of the earth. They just destroy the land, destroy the crops. They are just a bad predator. Needless to say, this is yet another factor which will have a huge impact on agricultural production this year. Food prices have already been rising quite aggressively in recent months, and this certainly isn't going to help matters. Just when you think that things can't possibly get any worse in the western half of the country, somehow they do, and many believe that what we have experienced so far is just the beginning.
Back in Matthew 24, verse 8, all these, the famines, the pestilences, are the beginning of sorrows, and it's going to get much worse from here on out. And Abaratazah, this grasshopper plague, continues and further ravages food production in the United States of America. Because ultimately, all this is leading to mass famines, not just coming to the United States of America, but globally, where people are going to die off in mass numbers and viciously fight and kill each other for whatever little bit of food and water that they can get their hands on. A couple of years ago, you had the head of the UN World Food Group say that they expect close to 300 million people globally to be on the verge of mass starvation. And besides this growing grasshopper problem, you already had that mega drought in the western half of the United States of America, which led to water shortages. So a lot of farmers have had to sacrifice certain crops to save others because they didn't have enough water to take care of all of them. And that's obviously going to further lead into these coming famines. And then you've got the elites looking to establish their NW0, so they're going to plan to manufacture food shortages as well. But ultimately, this is all through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to bring these plagues upon this planet to judge you people for your wickedness.
Scientists are telling us that there is no end in sight for the endless megadrought that is affecting so many western states right now, and that means that the grasshoppers will be with us for the foreseeable future as well. The summer of 2021 is only a couple of weeks old, but already there have been so many problems. Hopefully things will start to return to normal soon.
There is no return to normal. This is the beginning of sorrows, and things are only going to get worse until Yahweh second coming, the end of this age of the rulership of the heathen nations, and the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. Let's get into some more precepts. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 5. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden. And we can clearly see that the grasshopper is beginning to become a burden from that clip. You had farmers in that clip talking about how they're worrying about this growing grasshopper plague and how it's going to affect their croplands, as well as worrying about these grasshoppers eating up the vegetation, which is already scarce, that their animals use to forage. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. And again, this is all through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to visit this world for its wickedness and punish you people for all the wickedness and iniquity you've been committing on it. And the chief place that's going to feel these plagues and ultimately that destruction by nuclear fire is the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8. And I'm going to close it out in 2nd Ezra chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 12. And Egypt, spiritual Egypt, the United States of America, shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. And we're beginning to see these plagues affect spiritual Egypt, the United States of America. This grasshopper situation being one of them, and Abaratazai continues and makes things that much more worse for these Edomites, you heathens, and you 2/3 of the nation of Israel in the United States of America. They that till the ground shall mourn. And who are those that till the ground? These farmers. For their seed shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with the fearful constellation. And again, as we saw from that clip, these tillers of the ground, these farmers, are beginning to mourn from this coming burden of the grasshoppers, as well as the mega drought and many other issues that have been plaguing them over these past years. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. You can clearly see that we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.